So what I'm hearing is that despite all of this talk that Donald Trump and the Republican Party have about driving down energy costs, their first decisions are actually to drive up energy costs, including prices at the pump across the United States. And that has knock-on effects across the entire economy, right? These prices are not just contained. They're not just hiking prices on oil and gas. Oil and gas prices will then hike up prices on groceries and pretty much any good that gets transported, as well as housing and construction.
AOC thought she had the perfect argument. Higher energy prices mean higher grocery bills, higher housing costs, and more pain for American families. But then, one veteran congressman stood up, flipped the entire debate upside down, and forced Democrats onto defense. What happened next exposed one of the biggest divides in American politics, and AOC never saw it coming. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez opened by accusing Republicans of saying one thing and doing another. She argued that despite promising lower prices, Trump and Republicans were actually setting Americans up for higher energy costs and higher prices across the economy. It sounded like a winning argument, but the veteran from Michigan had no intention of playing defense. Instead, he launched the counterattack that transformed the debate from climate theory into jobs, national security, and the price families pay every time they pull into a gas station. And when he finished, the entire conversation had changed.
District for 5 minutes for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Apparently, Democrat gaslighting produces zero emissions. But what does their radical agenda mean for constituents in my districts and your districts who pay more at the pump, who pay more for groceries? Folks in Southeast Michigan have experienced their jobs being extinct, being shipped to other states, being shipped to other countries because Green New Deal woke policies do not work in the real world. Let's look at this from a 30,000-foot view. Over the past 4 years, every American has footed a higher gas bill, higher energy costs, and rising prices to keep their cars running and their homes heated. Under the Biden-Harris administration, they totally bent over to the radical left. We stopped producing cleaner, affordable energy in America to fit a narrative that only serves coastal elites and the rich in New York and California. What did this lead to? Our strategic petroleum reserves hit lows we haven't seen since I was a baby. That meant U.S. relying on energy that was unclean, energy that I would note are from dictators and despots in Moscow and Beijing and Tehran. Here's the inconvenient truth for my friends on the left. Energy produced and developed here in America is cleaner, it's safer, and it doesn't threaten our national security. In fact, it bolsters it. And what's worse, relying on our adversaries for energy means American jobs go down, not up. My constituents in the Detroit area are all too familiar with this, seeing the reckless policy effects of the EV mandates. Another failed policy billable to the Biden administration is importing sour crude, which has funded our adversaries. And we talk about infrastructure investments on the left side. Well, how about shutting down the Keystone Pipeline, which got rid of 11,000 union jobs? Now, the Democrats' Green New Deal agenda is the grim reaper for American jobs and actually clean energy. Being able to actually move forward into a future where we can all have cheaper, safer, cleaner energy is our goal. All of the above is the approach. Last year, I spoke on the House floor about how Biden's war on LNG was going to harm Michigan specifically. We have 1.1 trillion cubic feet in underground storage, which is one-eighth of the entire nation's natural gas storage capacity. Given DTE and consumers' baseload requirements that are increasing over the years versus the regulations in Michigan, we've been dealing with heavy-handed restrictions on building additional natural gas facilities and the supporting infrastructure requirements that we need to convey that safely with less power outages across the state. With a Republican House, Republican Senate, and White House, what can this Congress do to scale up natural gas as a reliable source? Again, Mr. McCown.
Well, there are several things we can do. Number one is we can stop the war on fossil fuels. We can have revised permitting. We can invoke public-private partnerships, loan guarantees. Some of the very same things that have been done for the renewable industry could be done to expand our natural gas or other fossil fuel industry, too. It should be a level playing field for everybody.
We all want clean air. We all want clean water. We all want to reduce pollution. But we also don't want to send our countrymen to the poorhouse trying to pay for sunshine and rainbows.
Congressional hearings often follow a predictable pattern. One side makes its case, the other side pushes back, and everyone leaves believing exactly what they believed before. But this exchange between Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and the Republican veteran from Michigan was different. AOC began with a simple argument. Energy prices affect everything. Gas prices influence transportation. Transportation affects groceries. Construction costs affect housing. And because energy touches nearly every sector of the economy, she argued that Republican policies would ultimately make life more expensive for ordinary Americans. On paper, the argument made sense, but then the Michigan congressman took the microphone, and he immediately changed the tone. Apparently, Democrat gaslighting produces zero emissions. That line alone signaled that he wasn't interested in accepting the premise. Instead of debating hypothetical future price increases, he pointed to what Americans had already experienced over the previous 4 years: higher gas prices, higher utility bills, higher costs throughout the economy. Not someday, now. Then he shifted the discussion to something even bigger: jobs. Speaking on behalf of workers in Southeast Michigan, he argued that aggressive green policies and electric vehicle mandates had harmed manufacturing communities and pushed jobs elsewhere. For working-class Americans, he argued, these policies weren't abstract ideas. They had real-world consequences. But his most powerful argument came when he turned to national security, because energy demand doesn't disappear simply because America produces less. People still drive cars, homes still need heating, businesses still need electricity. If the United States produces less energy, someone else fills the gap. And according to the congressman, that means relying more heavily on foreign producers, including countries whose interests do not align with America's. His argument was simple. Reducing American production doesn't necessarily eliminate demand. It simply shifts production and profits overseas. And that brought the debate onto entirely different ground. Instead of discussing climate goals alone, the conversation became about affordability, supply chains, and energy independence. He also criticized the shutdown of the Keystone Pipeline and pointed to concerns over declining strategic petroleum reserves, arguing that policies have consequences beyond environmental messaging. Whether viewers agree with every statistic or every conclusion, one thing became obvious. AOC and the Michigan veteran were arguing from two completely different perspectives. AOC emphasized climate concerns and the ripple effects of rising energy prices. The veteran emphasized jobs, domestic production, and national security. And politically, those practical concerns often resonate with voters who are focused on paying bills and supporting their families. That's what made this exchange so fascinating. It wasn't simply an argument over oil and gas. It was a clash between two visions of America's future. One focused on accelerating the transition away from fossil fuels, the other focused on maintaining abundant domestic energy while pursuing an all-of-the-above strategy. And perhaps that was the biggest takeaway. The veteran didn't try to defend himself on AOC's battlefield. He moved the fight to entirely different terrain. From climate theory to economic reality, from ideology to affordability, from global emissions to American workers. And in doing so, he transformed what looked like a difficult question into an opportunity. Because sometimes winning a debate isn't about answering the question you're given, it's about changing the question everyone is asking. If you enjoy calm, fact-focused breakdowns of major political moments, make sure to subscribe, because the battle over energy, inflation, and America's economic future is far from over.